Greetings fellow gorehounds and welcome back to another Blood Splattered vlog. So I just got done watching a movie called Most Likely to Die, which is a brand new homage to old school slasher movies. I mean, it's got a little bit of the 90s slasher in there, but there's also a whole bunch of 80s slasher tropes in there as well. And I gotta say, this movie isn't a, categorically good movie, but I did enjoy huge chunks of it. Despite this movie featuring a whole bunch of, really unlikable, kind of obnoxious, rich fucks for main characters, after they started developing them as the movie went on, I actually started to like a few of them, especially the final girl and the killer himself. Though that being said, there was still quite a few of them that I was, eagerly anticipating their demise. And for some of them, their demises were actually pretty satisfying. Others not so much, but I'll talk about that when I get to the spoilers. But really, there's not too much to say about this movie. It is a by-the-number slasher movie about a group of friends that used to be friends in high school and have decided to reunite for what I guess is supposed to be their 10-year reunion. I don't know if it actually clarifies that in the movie. If it did, I missed it. But anyway, they reunite for their 10-year reunion, and then slowly the 10 little Indians are picked off one by one. And it's pretty obvious right off the bat who the final girl is, who the killer is, and who's definitely gonna die. Except for one character. There was one character who lived who I didn't want to live and I was actually surprised did live. But once again, I'll talk about that when we get to the spoilers. But yeah, really, if you're not a fan of slasher movies, this isn't gonna change your mind, but it's not a completely terrible one. There are way better ones, but this one, it's not so bad. Jeez, I guess I'm kind of making some excuses for this movie, and I apologize for that, but it's weird when you run into a movie that you know is bad, but you still enjoy. Which I guess kind of defines a huge chunk of my channel now that I think about it. Oh, and one other thing, this movie is very light on gore for about the first hour. It's not light on deaths, there's still a lot of people who get their comeuppance, way early on in the movie. But a lot of their kills happen off screen, and a lot of their gruesomeness isn't revealed until way later on. There's one death in particular that you really don't get to see until you see the aftermath, when they discover her body. And the aftermath effect for that death is actually really gruesome and really good, but for most of the movie, I actually was kind of shocked at how bloodless it was. That being said, chunks of the last 20 minutes more than made up for that. But if I were to talk about the one thing that is probably the most glaring problem with this movie, it's the fact that it has, zero nudity. Don't get me wrong, there are characters having sex, and there are characters taking their clothes off, but there's a lot more side boob than there is full frontal. In fact, there's no full frontal whatsoever. I think when one character was changing her clothes, I got a quick glimpse in a mirror, but it wasn't really focused on in the shot. Which I know for a lot of people out there is not really a big deal, but for me, if you're gonna homage 80s slasher movies, it needs to have them titties. In fact, I would argue they don't only need them titties, they also need them dongs. What can I say? I'm an equal opportunity objectifier. Anyway, my fellow gorehounds, Most Likely to Die is not gonna change your mind about slasher movies by any stretch of the imagination, but if you already dig them, then it's worth a shot. It came out earlier this year, and I believe it was by the same director as the guy who did Last Shift, which was a movie Count Jacula and I did a vlog on way back, and the whole crux of that review was that the movie was really good up until the last 20 minutes. And this movie kind of has the opposite problem. It's really slow for the first hour or so, but then in the last 20 minutes, it really picks up. So just be warned about that before you watch it, because I imagine some of you might turn it off before the good part starts. And with that said, let's move on to the spoilers. Now, there isn't really too much I can spoil about this movie. You kinda already know what's going on from the get-go. So you got these friends, they get together for their 10-year high school reunion. I'm just gonna go with that because I'm pretty sure that's what it was. And they're slowly picked off one by one and killed in a manner that matches their superlative. The thing in the yearbook that, most likely to, have the last laugh, most likely to spike the punch. The horror guru, most likely to blood the splatter. That kind of thing. They're killed based on those things. So naturally, a character who has, most likely to break hearts has a death related to her heart. Though in this movie, it's actually more of metaphorical heart because her death actually breaks another person's heart. That part was actually pretty well done. And the killer in this movie is someone that you assume is a person that they wronged back in high school, coming back to get revenge, but it turns out it's not that simple. That being said, you will figure out pretty quickly who the guy doing the killing is because they don't make it subtle. Which, hey, for my cheap slasher movies, I usually am not looking for subtlety. But what I really like about the killer is that he has this really awesome design where he's wearing a mask that's composed of like cutouts of all the characters' faces from their yearbook. And he's wearing a blue graduation outfit, and he uses the yellow tassel or rope or whatever that thing is called that's usually around the graduation neck, and he actually chokes people with it. But that's not his only weapon. His other weapon is actually his graduation hat, which is a lot like Oddjob from James Bond. And by that I mean it's got this razor sharp edge, so he throws it and like decapitates people with it. And when that happens, the effects on the actual like decapitations and shit are actually pretty legit. I wish there was a whole lot more of them and that they weren't just like contained to the last 20 minutes, but I assumed that was a budgetary thing. After all, not all movies can be made on $100 million budgets. But anyway, the killer, like, he's awesome. Like, he's, like, taunting them the whole time. He's leaving the bodies in these kind of, like, haunted house scenarios for people to find, much like Jason Voorhees or Michael Myers. Like I said, something related to their superlatives. So, like, there's a character who said, whose one was most likely to get what she wants, and earlier in the movie, she said that all she wants is to live all her life in a hot tub. So, naturally, they find her dead in a hot tub. Very obvious stuff, but surprisingly satisfying. That being said, Perez Hilton is in this movie. Not Paris Hilton, but Perez Hilton, the bitchy gossip columnist. And he doesn't die. Like, you put Perez Hilton in the movie, one of the most unlikable— well, who are we kidding? All gossip columnists are fucking miserable people. And you don't kill him? Like, what the fuck? That's half the fun of putting a guy like that in the movie. Hell, like when they made House of Wax, they understood that people wanted to see Paris Hilton killed. Come on, like, he survives? Are you kidding me? That's probably my other complaint in this movie, is that Perez Hilton does not die over the course of this movie, and it is a fucking tragedy. Because even his character is obnoxious and annoying. Like, I could not fucking stand him, and I was really hoping that he was gonna get an awesome decapitation, but oh well. But yeah, at the beginning of the movie, these characters are really unlikable. Like, I was sitting there going like, oh god, like, I really hope the killing starts soon because I do not want to sit with these people any longer than I have to. And yeah, the killing does happen really fast. Like, they start killing people like right off the bat. Like a good slasher, it opens up with a kill. But what surprised me was that some of the characters, as their story developed, in particular the main character and her lesbian friend, and them reconnecting and kind of realizing that they don't really know each other as well as they thought they did, but in their reconnection, they kind of, you know, realized what they loved about each other back in high school. Like, that stuff worked really well. Even the handsome boyfriend who abandoned her in high school and went off to become a movie star, and then came back realizing that he had given up everything he loved to do that, and he kind of missed her. Even that worked really well, and I was surprised because I thought that was going to be a character that I was going to want to die really fast, but he was actually a surprisingly good guy. The idea being that he had really grown since high school. Some of the characters, on the other hand, did not grow, and it was really fun to watch them die. But my favorite character in the movie was actually the guy who turns out to be the killer, and that is, like I said, it's not too surprising he turns out to be the killer. They don't make it subtle. But what I like about this character is that he is the prankster kid, the kid that, like, you know, was the class clown. But that's not actually why he goes on this killing spree. It's actually an act of guilt for a character that they all mutually fucked over. Because it turns out there was a kid in high school that they all picked on and bullied, and at one point the bullying got too far where they actually pranked the kid by putting a gun in his locker, which got him both expelled and sent to juvie and completely fucked over his life. And the prankster kid was actually the kid that put the gun in the locker, but he did it under the peer pressure of the rest of the group. He is trying to, you know, make right what he did wrong and what the group did wrong and punish everyone for their part in it. And I gotta be honest, he was actually really enjoyable as the killer. He was fun to watch, and his motivation, you know, when you hear what they did, you kind of go, yeah, you motherfuckers deserve this shit, like, hardcore. I don't fucking care if you've become better people as you've gone on, and to be fair, most of you haven't. What you did was unforgivable, like, what the fuck? So yeah, there's really not much more for me to say about this movie. It's not a good movie. There's a lot of like audio technical issues throughout it, like the kind of stuff you would expect in like a YouTube video like mine and not in like an actual movie. But it's still worth a watch if you like slasher movies. I would give it probably like a 2 out of 5 stars. Anyway, my fellow Gorehounds, I'm gonna get back to work on my next Blood Splattered Cinema episode proper, and I'll catch y'all next time.